Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, I'm joined by Jennifer Garrett. She is the founder and CEO of Elevate Your Hustle and the Move the Ball brand, which is very well known out there. And she's working with all kinds of businesses, helping them. And I am excited to hear her story, but also a little background in terms of what it is that she's doing with other businesses too. So welcome to the show, Jennifer. I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Lance. I'm really excited to be on the show.
So I want to just kick things off right now with some advice that you can give to entrepreneurs who are listening to this podcast right now around the things you've learned as an entrepreneur, but maybe also as you've worked with other entrepreneurs and other businesses as well. So give me 3 things that you think that every entrepreneur really needs to understand or master in order to have a successful business.
For sure. I think first and foremost, it comes to knowing who are you serving with your products and services. And I'm sure that other people have said that on the show before. So that's probably not one that is unique, but it's so important to understand who are you targeting? What problem are you trying to solve? And then being crystal clear and being able to focus on that segment, that marketing, communicating what it is that you provide to help solve that problem. That leads me into the second thing, which is knowing not only what you provide, but how are you differentiating yourself from your competition? Again, I'm sure that's something that's not unique, but it's something that people are also not always thinking about. Like, who else is out there that can provide these services or these products? And how are you setting yourself apart? Which also translates into how are you setting yourself apart when it comes to your online, your digital presence, your marketing efforts, your messaging, right? How are you communicating with your audience? Are you connecting with them on more than just a transactional level, on a human connection? That authenticity, that vulnerability in your messaging to help these people solve that problem is important. And thirdly, I would say, focus on serving first. The transactions will come when you focus on the service, right? And what it is that you're trying to help these other people, your customers, your prospective clients to achieve. And then remembering, this is part B of the third answer, is it's not just about that transaction, but it's continuing to feed those people in your network and serving. And when there's a time and a place for business to be done, it will happen. It's not a one and done transaction. And also, like for me and my business, I have a lot of referrals. It's one, I think I provide a quality service, but secondly, it's because of the relationship that I'm maintaining with my prior clients and just with people in my network.
Yeah. And this is the reason why I really wanted to have you on the podcast, because we had an earlier conversation and I just love the alignment that you have with my belief system and as well, which is to serve others first. And it's amazing how business just kind of comes out of that, right? And so when you put that good energy out, when you build those stronger relationships through service, you end up then really setting the stage for a really great business relationship at the same time.
For sure. Yeah. And we see all these people who are pitching their lead gen services to us and things. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, like when I get those, I'm like, I don't really need that. I'm not saying that in a bragging way, but I've spent a lot of time cultivating relationships with people such that I have people that are sending me business, prior clients, other people in the network. When you focus on that service, and that's such a key part that people, they don't think about. They're always thinking about the quick win, the transaction. I got to get this done. I got to close this deal. But when you shift your thinking to this other approach, you'd be really surprised at how much business you actually get from doing this a different way.
Yeah, completely. One thing, and I as you were talking there, I just noted down, I think it was your number 2 advice, which was the authenticity and being somewhat vulnerable. This is something that I think a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs really struggle with, I think. Not necessarily the authenticity part, but the vulnerability part. Could you go a little deeper into how you think businesses can apply that? Because that is somewhat difficult, as we're always trying to put our best foot forward. And sometimes, we have to dress the part before we can really be the part. And so sometimes that isn't necessarily authentic in some ways. And when things get tough, sometimes we don't embrace that vulnerability. And so it's a little bit of like, I know I should be more this way, but it's really difficult because I also want to put out there that I'm successful. So come work with me because I can help you. Right.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and there is it can be a challenge. I mean, once you start doing it, it becomes easier, but how do you start doing
Yeah.
it? And you have to remember like the people that are your customers and that are in your tribe or in your circle, whether they are a customer or someone who's a supporter who's marketing and telling other people about your services, right? Those people are going to connect with you. Yes, they like the services or the products you provide, but they're also doing business with you because it's you. You're someone they know, they like, they trust. And so when you share these vulnerabilities, you're further deepening the connection with people. I mean, I'll give an example. So I put a lot of content out on social media, as do you. That's part of our business, right? Is communicating to the world and serving in that capacity.
Yeah.
And as part of the content I put out, I am fortunate that I get to share that I'm posting things or I'm doing things with professional athletes, with celebrities. So I've got lots of great pictures that I can put out there and people see, wow, look at her. There she is again. Right, there's Jen doing this cool thing. Well,
Yeah.
something that I shared earlier this year was that I fell down twice in a week period. I mean, a 1 week period, not a week, W-E-E-K, week period. And what happened was I was at Super Bowl in Las Vegas that week, and there was all kinds of activities, and I ended up falling down. I rolled my ankle. I felt like I was going to pass out. EMTs had to come. It was not fun. And then the following week, when I was back home in Chicago, I also rolled my other ankle, got banged up some more. And I was like, what is going on? And what happened was I had been so busy pushing myself to the point of fatigue, of exhaustion, that my body had finally said enough. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, time out. Like, we need to take a break and focus on what the heck's going on with me, because your health is most important, right? First and foremost. But I shared that because I thought it was important. People see that you're posting all these great things out there, but I'm a human being, right? Things happen to me just like everybody else. And it's those connections, those things that we struggle with. I'm a single parent. So, I don't post a lot about being a single parent, but there are times that I do because,
Yep.
again, it humanizes. Like, I'm a person. I have the same challenges and issues at times that other people do. And it's that vulnerability that deepens those relationships with people that are in your tribe. And guess what? Because they feel like they're connecting with you on an emotional level, they're going to want to continue to support you, to do business with you because they can relate to you. And the relatability is key.
Yeah, yeah. Humanizing yourself, obviously, is a lot easier than humanizing the brand, but it's really important that we make those efforts because when it comes to business, and this is something that somebody told me a long time ago, one of my coaches on the sales side of things said, people buy from people, they don't buy from brands, right? And
Yes.
and that is so true, right? So anything that you can do to humanize your brand is going to help them connect better with you and what it is that you're trying to do for them. Now,
Right.
speaking of that, actually, that's a good segue right into what is it that you're trying to do with your business in terms of who are you serving and what kind of problems are you helping them overcome?
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier when you introduced me that I have my company, which is Elevate Your Hustle. That's a legal entity. The brand is Move the Ball. And so what I'm really looking to do is to help people to move the ball when it comes to their career from
Yeah,
a standpoint of branding and positioning that brand. So how do you take and package all of your experience, pull together a compelling story, clearly articulate your unique value proposition so
yeah,
that you can continue to advance in your career and beat out the competition who, oh, by the way, also has great experiences. So how do you differentiate yourself? How do you set yourself apart, right? And so that branding element is an important part of that, whether it's, improving your executive presence, looking at your online digital presence and pulling together your story, positioning yourself as an expert in X, right? Like
yeah.
those are all things that I work with my clients on doing so that they can continue to advance and excel in their career.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so critical. Just like what we were talking about in terms of the humanizing of the brand, but you have to really put a lot of effort into building the brand to begin with,
Yes.
right? And
Mhm.
and so I'm curious in your experience working with all these different brands and obviously building your own brand. What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that people make at different stages maybe of their business. So I would imagine, the startup maybe is doing something a little different in terms of mistakes versus the company that's been around like mine for say 13 years. So
Sure.
the more established companies versus the least established ones, if there is any difference. But what are some of those common mistakes that people are making out there that they should be avoiding?
Yeah, so I think let's talk about the early stage company first. It's being very clear on what it is you're looking to do, who you're looking to serve. And the reason I say that is because when you're starting out and you're trying to make money, right? Like I've got this new venture, I want to make a sale. What is it that I'm trying to do to bring in some revenue? And it can be tempting to go in a different direction because you think there might be a different opportunity that might be off from what you're looking at doing. But like, oh, it could be a quick sale. It could be something that can bring in some money and I need to make some money today. So let me go and spend time doing this other thing instead of staying true to the core of what it is I'm trying to build. So I think that's important to make sure you know what it is that you're looking to do and focus all your energy and effort on those things. Now, that being said, I should say focus most of your energy. You can explore other things, but keep the main thing. The main thing is something that's a lot of people like to talk about in the world of professional sports. A lot of the pro athletes I deal with, right? Like focus on the main thing, and all of your activities, most of your activities should be in alignment with that thing. Yes, you can cultivate some
Mm,
other opportunities, but again, like keep the main thing the main thing. So I think that's important, especially when you're starting off and you're just trying to figure things out and get the ball moving and making some money. As you continue on in your brand, I think it's staying true to the brand, keeping that consistent messaging going forward. So for example, with my Move the Ball brand, almost all of the messages that I put out there tie into the theme of moving the ball when it comes to your career. So I'll use that phrase a lot because it's a key part of my brand, right? I
mm,
also have a podcast by the same name. So making sure that you're integrating all of your communications and tying it together to a cohesive set of messages that are on point to your brand and what it is you're looking to do. And then it's consistency. You've got to consistently show up, right? And
yeah.
show up and do the right things to move your brand forward, to move your business forward. And that might be different for all of us, right? Like what those things are, but you need to know what are the things that you need to do and then consistently execute on those things so that you can continue to drive revenue growth.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing that has always frustrated me with some businesses is, they outwardly will try to position themselves, their brand in a certain way, but then they don't live it internally, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not executed that way. The people in the business don't really seem to embody the brand that they're really trying to outwardly project. And it just that disconnect creates just a tension, I think, in the
Yeah.
eyes of the marketplace. Can you talk to me about that a bit and some experiences maybe you've bumped into along that road too?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you certainly want to have alignment between the people that are working within the business and what the business is holding out. Too, I think an important thing for that is alignment to the purpose. Like, what is the purpose of this organization? Whether it's a big
Yeah,
organization or a small one, right? Like remaining connected to that purpose and having something that people can feel is meaningful and they want to continue to bring their best foot forward. I'll give you a very different example. Not when I was in my entrepreneurial stage. But when I was in corporate, I've worked for multiple big Fortune 50 companies, primarily in the aerospace and defense sector. And one of them was GE in their aviation business. And the company spent a ton of money hiring some outside firm to help them come up with a purpose statement. And that purpose statement ended up being, we invent the future of flight, we lift people up, and we bring them home safely. And so when you think of that, like powerful words, but it like connected
yeah,
every single person to the mission of that organization. And it made people want to act in alignment with things that did just that, right? So they took
yeah,
pride in, I mean, aviation is a very important thing, right? You have to be safe. You can't compromise quality. Like we've seen some issues of that here over the last year. Right. And so you have to have people that are passionate about really serving the customers, being airline travelers, and taking pride in producing quality product because you're compromising safety in that
yeah,
space. Right. And so I think by having a statement, a culture that really allows people to align with what it is they are doing and the problems they are looking to solve and the value they're looking to bring into the marketplace. Like that alignment is so key so that you do have people acting in consistency with what the company is about, and it aligns with what they are about.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. I want to turn our attention now back over to your journey as an entrepreneur as well, because I'm fascinated by what you have been doing, where you started, and how your business has evolved. But I want to go back to the starting point. Can you share with us, the audience, myself here, as to what was the catalyst behind starting your business, jumping into entrepreneurship?
Mhm. Yeah. So my focus, a lot of people that jump into entrepreneurship, they're unhappy, right? They're
Yeah,
unhappy with their career, or that's just their thing. Like they've always wanted to be an entrepreneur and they love it. They eat it, they breathe it. If this idea fails, they're on to the next one, right? That wasn't me. For me, I always thought I was going to be a corporate person. I wanted to be a Fortune 500 CEO, like the big dog of a big company.
yeah,
And so, we talk about alignment. So that was my goal. So the things that I did was in alignment with positioning myself for those types of roles. Was to climb the corporate ladder early in my career. For me, life was great. Didn't I always felt valued by the organizations I worked with, had amazing people, amazing teams, felt connection to purpose in terms of the products and services the companies provided. Why I chose to leave that was at the end of 2016, my dad had passed away very unexpectedly, which
okay,
made me pause and reflect upon life and just other things. And what I realized was, the world keeps moving, whether you're in it or not. And all these things that
yeah,
I had been building on this resume, I've worked on multi-billion-dollar deals, right? I've worked in these big companies. I've done some things that are impressive on this piece of paper. But at the end of the day, when it's my turn to go, no one's going to care about those things, right? 7 degrees, billion-dollar deals. Okay, wonderful. That's not going to matter. So what is it that I really wanted to build that was going to be the legacy? I had written my first book, Move the Ball, already. I'd been not publishing, posting over time about it. People started catching on and would post about how they were moving the ball when it came
yeah.
to their life or their business or their career. And I was like, that's a thing. That's the thing, right? And so I was like, that is the thing I'm going to go build out. That's the legacy, not knowing when or where. Fast forward a couple of years, I was in a job that was very, very stressful, loved the people, loved the work, but my health was taking a toll because of the stress. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, no job is worth your health. No job, right? Even if you're an entrepreneur, like if it's compromising your health, you got to make a pivot. And so I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm out. I'm going to go, do my own thing. And it's very easy to say that. To do it is another
Yeah,
story, right? I was single parent,
yeah,
5 kids. So to walk away from a job that
totally, yeah,
paid decently, right? So I was fortunate there. So to give that up and say, I'm going to go all in on this other thing is a big move. Took me a little while to get that. I don't know if I say courage because I was ready, but like to just go over that, to take that final leap. And so on November 5th, 2019, which would have been my dad's birthday, that's when I took the leap. And so here we are, 5 years later, and it's been a journey. And what I thought I was going to do when I first left is different than what I'm doing now. My thought was, I'm going to help people move the ball. It's very broad, right? You could do a lot of things with that phrase. And so I
yep.
was going to do leadership development training, corporate workshops, those types of things. I left
Makes
in
sense because
yeah,
that was your background, right? Yeah,
right. So I left November 2019, February, March 2020, the world completely changed, right?
yeah,
And so the business that I was focused on, that market evaporated in an instant. I was like, well, got to figure something else out. So I pivoted and, tried to figure out what was that thing. And I started off working with people on their resumes because I'm like, I know how to help people find jobs. So let me do that. And I hated it because I was like, I didn't leave my job to go do this. Right. And a
yeah,
friend of mine was like, well, you're looking at it the wrong way. She's like, you left to help people move the ball. By helping them with their resumes, you're helping them get a new job, a great job, which is helping them to do just that. And I was like, okay. So then I felt better about it. Right. And, but it took me a while to really embrace and like, okay, this is the thing that I'm meant to do. And that it's evolved over time. So it's not just about a resume or a LinkedIn profile. It's really about your brand and how do you take and package that. And the artifacts could be a resume or a LinkedIn profile, but that's the output. That's not the core of what it is that we're working together on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that pivoting that you had to do, talk to me a little bit about that in terms of like, here I'm asking you to be a little more vulnerable.
Sure.
So just personally, right? Because we have the vision when we set out to start our business, and then, invariably there's going to be something that is going to challenge that. It's going to be an
Yes.
obstacle that is going to jump in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And the successful entrepreneurs figure out a way to overcome those obstacles. You pivoted a bit, but how do you maintain, the fortitude, the psychological fortitude to really have the strength to go through that? Because I mean, everything was upended for you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think if you take anyone who's high performing and you put them in any situation, like they'll figure it out. That's kind of how they're wired, right? Like, okay, this is just another
Yeah.
challenge. Let me figure this out. But mentally, like, how do you keep going? How do you figure out where to go? It's an uncertain time, right? And I think you have to really come back to why did you do this in the first place? Like, what was your objective? What was your reasoning? What was your why for going on this venture? And so for me, it was to serve and to make an impact. And I could do that in a different way than I originally planned, but I could still achieve my objective. And for me, like, I absolutely love when people come back and share, their results, like where they're going, the great
Yeah.
jobs that and I'll have clients that I worked with in early 2000 who every time something happens in their career, they reach back out to me, and I I really love that because they trust, like they want to share that with me because I'm a part of their journey. They don't
Yeah.
have to, they owe me nothing, right? There's no obligation to let Jen know what's going on, but they choose to do that. And that makes me feel good that I'm a part of their circle and they want to share those celebrations and those accomplishments with.
Yeah, yeah, really good. Now, in our earlier conversation, you had mentioned at that time a bit about the importance of building your network and leveraging relationships to really fuel the growth of your business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if you could give our audience some insights into how you approached business development and maybe how you currently do it as well, I guess, if it's changed at all, and building that client base.
Sure. Yes, I mentioned that I have quite a bit of referral business, which I'm
Yeah.
grateful for. That part is really just continuing to nurture those relationships, right? It's not a one and done. We did this transaction. Good luck to you. It's really continuing to feed that network to serve those clients. I have a podcast as well. So if I do a podcast episode as an example that's tied to a topic that I think someone would find helpful, I'll share it with
Yep.
them just as an example, right? Or if I know someone's got a family member that, something great happened, a wedding, a graduation, whatever, I will send a message. It's not just about the deal. It's not just about the business aspect of it. It's also about the human aspect. And people can see when you're genuine, and like, I love doing that. That's stuff that just, I look forward to being able to make someone's day or to, just catch them off guard with kindness, because people don't expect that. So for me, that's something
Totally.
that I love to do. And I think that genuineness comes through. And so people want to continue to stay in your circle, right? It's not
Yep.
people want to continue to give you business. If there's a time and place, they will, but it's they want to stay connected to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one thing I think, just staying human, genuine, authentic, and remember humans first, business second is a successful approach for me. And I would encourage people to think about that. But it's not just about getting referral clients, right? How do you get other business besides that? You've got to be focused on people that you have no connection to, new business development through cold leads. I don't make cold phone calls. I don't spam people's emails. I do post a lot of content out on LinkedIn as an example tied to career stuff. I did start a newsletter in August on LinkedIn. It's called The Executive Edge. And every week I write an article on a topic tied to give people that edge when it comes to their career. And
Yeah.
so, have I had, have a lot of people call saying, hey, Jen, I want to do business with you. Not from the newsletter specifically, but that's not the point. It's serving others. And when there's a time and a place, people, they're in your circle, right? They're in your sphere, they're in your ecosystem, they're receiving your content, they're developing the trust for you. And when the time is right, then they might reach out, right? Or they might tell somebody else. So that's something that I've done. I also have my podcast. So the podcast is not specifically a career focused podcast. That's why I created the newsletter to be really more focused on that. The podcast is more on high performance, on business success. I have a lot of pro athletes and celebrities and other people on because I do speaking engagements and I have my books. So there are other reasons for promoting, right, that stuff. But for the career stuff, I really wanted to have another lane. So that's why I created the newsletter. And then again, the consistency in the posting, bringing value and serving others. That's when people come because they see that stuff and they find you to be a resource for them, someone that could help them to solve that problem that you're looking to solve for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that I love about what you're doing, your approach to communicating your brand and communicating the things that you do while you're still serving people is just the breadth of it. So Jen, this is what I really appreciate about the things that you've done is you've really diversified the way that you communicate to your target audience. And so you are very active in social media. You're doing your newsletters, you're doing all the networking things that you're doing and really working those referral networks. But you also have the podcast, you're doing so many different things. That's also difficult to balance, I think, for a lot of people. Any advice there on, I guess, what would be the things to focus on first and then gradually layer in more items and what that sequencing should be, maybe based off of the experience you've had?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that it comes down to understanding what your priorities are and what your objectives for one, right? So like I break mine down every week at the beginning of the week on Sundays. I'm writing down, okay, what are my objectives for the week? What do I want to accomplish? And then it's looking at, okay, what things do I need to do to achieve X? So I'll give you an example. I recently launched a number of workbooks tied to helping people with their career. There's one on mastering strategic networking, another one on mastering your unique value proposition, etc. So for me,
Yep.
like my priority is to let people know about those workbooks, right? So I'm posting more content tied to that. I'm writing articles in my newsletters on topics that could be tied into these workbooks so that I can casually mention them. It's not my newsletters are not advertise or us where I'm putting, spamming people, so to speak, with a lot of stuff about, hey, go buy this, but I can casually mention it. And if somebody wants to check out the link, go right ahead. You know what I mean? So it's tying things together too, to the extent that you can. My podcast, I run my show in season, so I'm not actively recording episodes right now. So for me, it's easy to, maybe I'm not promoting that stuff as much because you can always go back and promote content, right? And episodes that are of value, but I'm not spending as much time writing posts on that right now versus focusing on the workbooks. And, how do I use the newsletter to help me achieve more sales when it comes to those workbooks? So I think it's really just being crystal clear on what is it that you want to achieve on a monthly or weekly basis, and then making sure the tasks that you're doing are in alignment with that. There's no shortage of things we could do. I could do all kinds of other stuff tied to my podcast, right? But that's not my priority right now. So it's being very intentional and deliberate with what you're spending your time on and saying no to those things that don't need to be done right now because it doesn't align with the priorities for the week.
Yeah, exactly. I like it. Okay, so looking ahead, every business has their goals, the milestones that they're trying to achieve. And I want to talk about the ones that you have in the shorter term, so 6 to 12 months out.
Sure.
What are the goals that, I guess we don't really need to get into what the goals are specifically, but in terms of what do you think are going to be the challenges that you're going to face to hitting those goals? And then how do you anticipate you're going to overcome those challenges?
Sure. So we'll talk about my workbooks a little bit more because that is kind of a big focus for me.
Yeah.
And so, I launched the website last week and there were a few different workbooks already out. My plan is to continue to add more workbooks to this site so that it's a library or a catalog, if you will, so that if you have a problem with your career, so for example, I mentioned a couple that are already out. Another one I'm going to build is on helping women to break the glass ceiling. Another one's going to be for early career professionals. So no matter where you are in your career journey or what you're struggling with, I'm hoping that there will be a workbook that can help you tackle that specific thing. So that's my vision for this
Okay.
Executive Edge Pro Playbook. So what challenges do I expect to see over the next 6 to 12 months? One, building the workbooks, but that's a time thing. That's a me problem, right? Where I can just prioritize time to figure out when I can work on these workbooks. So the next part of that is driving traffic and revenue growth in this new segment for this new product line, if you will, to, be more business talk. And so, how do you do that? How do you differentiate yourself from other people that are saying, hey, I'm an executive coach? I don't brand myself as an executive coach. For me, it's all about the branding side. So it
Yeah.
narrows it down a little bit more, right? But how are you setting yourself apart? How am I setting myself apart to convince someone to say, you know what? I should purchase that book. I think that book can help me. So I think for me, that's really recognizing that exists, right? Like that's the thing that I'm trying to convince someone to make the purchase. And how do I do that? It's through content they put up, but also leveraging the relationships that you already have. So for me, a big part of my playbook is to really just start engaging people in my sphere, prior clients, yes, because what we see is people who have a relationship with you because they've bought something. It's different than just your friends or family. They're in the business of, or they're used to that dynamic and paying you for a service. So their view of your relationship is a little bit different than someone who's known you for 20 years. And you're like, how come that person doesn't buy? Right. So it's focusing on the people that have been clients that are used to supporting you in a business capacity, but also then reaching out to other people who might not have been a purchaser, but are people that can still be a word of mouth advertiser for you as well, right? Will I go to paid ads at some point? Maybe. I don't know if it's in the next 12 months. I think to scale, I'll probably get there. But for me right now, it's still, the old school approach, leveraging the
Organic.
people in your network, right? And then you can build and have your ads and all that stuff, which I think is when you look at people who are building 7, 8, 9-figure businesses, that is what they're doing because they need a bigger reach, right, to get to those other people. So I think it will come. I don't know if it's in the next 12 months, but it will come. So first, it's the organic growth.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I think you've got all the ingredients. You obviously understand the strategy of it all, right? And so that's the most important part of it. And I like the approach of going organic first, get some traction and get some momentum there. And then you start to layer in some of the ad spend. Just as a little pro tip for those who are listening, your cost for your advertising is actually going to be less if you can, on these social platforms, if you can get engagement on that as well. And so you build your engagement, build the following, layer in some fuel to the fire, basically in the form of ads, and you're going to end up with a much better return on your ad spend as well. So really smart approach. Well, this has been fun, Jen. I really appreciate you taking the time today to explain your story and giving some really thoughtful advice to our audience in terms of branding and as well, like just on how to build a successful business as well. So I guess, how would people connect with you? Where should we send them? How best to get them in touch with you and the things that you do so well?
Yeah, if you go to executiveedgeplaybook.com, you can see the workbooks, and also you can see, learn more about me and kind of the services that I do if you're curious. You can also check out the podcast there. I would love for you to give it a listen, the Move the Ball podcast. Yeah. It's also on all the major podcast platforms. Yeah, and find me on LinkedIn. Love connecting with people. They're the best way to find me because Jennifer Garrett is a common name. Is just put the hashtag Move the Ball, and I'm sure my content will come up and you can find me that way.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate you taking the time today to share your story, your advice. And for everybody who's listening today, if you really like this episode and want to check out some other episodes, head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca. That's where you're going to find the archive. And of course, you can listen to all of our upcoming episodes and the back library as well by searching Amplify Your Business on your favorite podcasting platform. Until next time, everybody have a prosperous day.